Hello and welcome back to Digital Marketing Masterclass. We have a loaded show for you today. But before we start the show, I wanted to announce something very exciting. Joining me as the new co-host of Digital Marketing Masterclass is none other than Andy Crestodina. If you're not familiar with Andy, Andy is the co-founder and chief marketing officer of Orbit Media, an award-winning 50-person digital agency based out of Chicago. Over the past 20 years, Andy has provided digital marketing advice to over 1,000 plus businesses. He has also written 500 plus articles on content strategy, search engine optimization, influencer marketing, visitor psychology, and analytics. These articles reach more than 3 million readers each year. He's also the author of Content Chemistry, the illustrated handbook for content marketing. He's also won countless awards, not only as a thought leader, but also as an influencer from companies like SEMrush, Brand24, Forbes, Entrepreneur, Twitter, Awards Magazine, Top Rank, Alexa, BuzzSumo, Social Media Explorer, Outbrain, Read Write, and he's a 3-time winner of the Inc. 5000 Award. And above and beyond that, he's also a prominent speaker at pretty much every marketing conference imaginable. So without further ado, Internet, please give a warm welcome to Andy Crestodina.
Thanks, Chris. It's a pleasure. I'm honored to be here, and I'm super excited about this project. We're going to be talking to the smartest people about the most interesting topics, starting with Mark Schaefer. Super quick intro for Mark Schaefer, if you didn't know it already yet. Mark is the best-selling author of 9 books, including Known, the book about personal branding, Marketing Rebellion, which lays it out so perfectly. It's like, that's the landscape. That's where we are. And more recently, a book we're going to hear about in a second. Mark is a keynote speaker. Mark is a thought leader. Mark is a visionary. He sort of somehow knows what's going to happen next. Mark is a legit content influencer, teacher, and friend. Let's welcome Mark Schaefer. Mark Schaefer, I am so glad you're here. Thank you for being our inaugural guest.
The Digital Marketing Masterclass.
You're perfect for this.
You're right.
And we're grateful that you're here.
Well, that remains to be seen, but I hope I won't disappoint you. There's a lot of pressure on me right now.
That's how
We're off to a great start.
And that's how I had to bribe Andy to be on the show. I was like, I'm going to do everything. You just need to show up, bring great guests, and then and go. I'll take care of everything else.
Let's just hope that today isn't the peak, because we're setting a very high bar with Mark himself. Mark, you and I go back more than 10 years. I know.
Oh yeah. And I regard you as one of my victories of the social media scene. I mean, you've become a close friend and a cherished friend, and I'm starting to know Chris a little better, but certainly we go back a long ways.
Yeah, and I have a lot of Mark stories that I'll save for another time. Mostly, we're here to talk about this.
Okay.
I want you to share a little bit of your mind today on this topic that is, it's been touched on a lot. It's people feel connected to it, but I think you finally unpacked it for us all. This book is about community. We're talking about belonging to the brand. Mark Schaefer's latest 10th book?
10th book.
10th book,
Yeah.
Why Community is the Last Great Marketing Strategy. Again, why community is the last great marketing strategy. So Mark, why is this a good time to talk about community?
Because we need it more than ever for a number of reasons. And the genesis of this book really started with a book I wrote called Marketing Rebellion. Mm-hmm. There was a chapter in that book about belonging and community. Marketing Rebellion was a wake-up call. And it basically said, hey, marketing professionals, put down your algorithms for a minute and let's really remember what this is about, what we're trying to do, about creating this really meaningful emotional connection with our customers. And when I finished writing that book, I realized that is the most important chapter of the book. That is really the future of marketing. When all this spam and robocalls goes away, we're still going to have belonging and community. So this has been percolating in my brain since about 2018, and then boom, the pandemic happens. And during the pandemic, a lot of people were telling me, Mark, the ideas in your book, they're coming true right now. If you remember, the pandemic started like this. We're with you in these unprecedented times, right? The big companies, they couldn't get off the advertising scripts. And finally, some of them at least rolled up their sleeves and helped. They help people connect. They help people belong. They help people at their point of need. And that's what the Marketing Rebellion is really about. Now, the other thing that's happened is I saw this headline in the New York Times. And the headline was The Loneliest Generation. And it talked about how much our children are struggling with isolation and loneliness and depression. And I knew it was happening, but I think that title, The Loneliest Generation, just hit me very, very deeply. And I talk about in the book something that happened to me when I was a kid. And I was a ghost of a child for several years. And then a miracle happened where I was adopted into a community when I got to high school. And it unleashed me as a person. I was accepted, and I became confident, and I became involved in student government and writing and sports. And I was always haunted by this idea of what if that hadn't happened? Now, think about the millions of kids who are lonely and isolated like I was. How are they being unleashed? So those were really the two big drivers of this book. And I want to emphasize that this is a hard-nosed, common-sense business book. This is not a Pollyannish book saying, hey, everybody, let's start a community and save the world. What I'm saying is this solves a big problem in marketing right now. A lot of our marketing doesn't work like it used to. It's being rejected by our customers. We need to try something new. That's the number one thing. And I talk about how we haven't looked at community through the lens of brand marketing. It's not talked about. It hasn't been written about. I have never gone to a marketing conference where there was a track on community. It's right there in front of us as this opportunity. And community isn't new, but we haven't looked at it this way. And, oh, by the way, it does heal the world. We need community. We long for community. We're incomplete in our psychology and our sociology without community. So yes, this is marketing that works, but it's also marketing that heals. And I think we need that in this time.
The audience first. You didn't even talk about the brand needs. You talked about the importance to people, to our readers, our subscribers, our buyers, our prospects. I love how you just sort of skipped like the me first perspective completely. But let's keep it real and go to some examples there in the book. Can you just connect that dot to the brand and how this actually drives business impact?
Well, in chapter 3, I go through this very detailed explanation of all the brand value in community that's just being overlooked before. And so first of all, a couple big points. 70% of communities fail, and they fail primarily because they're designed to try to sell something, and that is not a reason for people to gather. So that's point number one. Of the communities that make it, 70% of those are dedicated toward a transaction, customer self-service, which is fine. And that's popular because it's easy to measure. You have cost avoidance, right? Now, what I illustrate in chapter 3 is, look, what about brand advocacy, co-creation, collaboration, trust, reduced churn, loyalty, all these things that are associated with brand loyalty and trust and love, the emotional connection that we get through community. I contend that's more important, or it can be more important than the transactional stuff. and it's almost completely ignored. And that's why I say it's sort of the last great marketing strategy, because it was the first marketing strategy. That's why, our grandparents, that's why they loved the company, because they knew their names and they knew their kids and they knew their needs and they knew what was wrong. This personal connection, it was the first strategy. It's the last strategy, because I predict in 20 years, we're going to look back at this day and we're going to say, robocalls and spam. What were we thinking? We called that marketing. I'm so glad we have community at the heart of our marketing today. I think that's really where the future is going to be.
Yeah, those robocalls don't really generate a lot of loyalty, do they? Not much love and junk mail.
Yeah, it causes nausea.
Yeah, it's noise. Love, loyalty. I'm a measurement marketer. I'm an analytics kid.
Yeah.
Do I even attempt to measure these things? Is there, are these quantifiable? Does it matter?
That's a great question. That is the angst of community managers everywhere. 90% say our community is doing great things for our business. Only 10% say we can really quantify that. I'm a measurement geek too. This is a little known fact about me. I actually have the equivalent of a master's degree in statistics. This is a long story, and I don't really use it every day, but I know enough to be dangerous. And if you're going to look at community through the lens of brand marketing, you have to look at measurement through the lens of brand marketing. So, direct marketing, or sometimes we call it maybe performance marketing, that can be, coupons and ads, and we can see a direct attribution. We're putting more money in ads and we get more money out. The example I use in the book is Gatorade versus Powerade. I'll tell you a funny story. I was watching the football playoffs a few weeks ago. And, whenever somebody wins a game, they sneak up on the coach and they have the Gatorade bath. That's a very American thing, by the way. They don't do that in other countries. At least,
Sure not.
At least not yet. So, believe it or not, Powerade, in a rare college football appearance, sponsored the drink and the bench. And so they were sneaking up behind the coach with this big vat that said Powerade on it. Here's what the announcer said. Here comes the Gatorade bath. Right? Because it's iconic, right? Because we associate Gatorade with premium sporting events, elite sporting events. Now, Gatorade has 80% of a $30 billion sports drink market. Incredible domination. They also charge twice as more for a bottle than Powerade. Now, Powerade, what are they doing? Coupons and promotions and advertising, trying to get a little more shelf space. Meanwhile, Gatorade is creating these iconic cultural moments. Now, can you tell me how much Gatorade they sell because of the Gatorade bath? Do they sell more? Yes. Can you measure it? No. That, my friends, is brand marketing. There might be leading indicators. If you're a big company like Pepsi or Coke, yes, you could probably get some attribution there. But for 99% of the businesses in the world, you really can't measure it in a good way. You need to take a leap of faith, and you need to look at what we used to call, a vanity metric, or, some people think it's a fluffy metric, like engagement within a community. That shows that your community is vital and growing and relevant. Look, I'd love to say, yeah, we can assign a hard dollar value to community. You can't. But you also have a choice. You can be the Gatorade of your industry, or the Powerade of your industry. If you want to be the Powerade of your industry, then be transactional and do customer service. But you could be a market-dominating, soul-crushing brand if you look at the brand marketing opportunities of community.
Yep. Can I ask you a question? So one of the things that you said in your book, and I like this, was the bedrock of every new idea is consumer insight. If you overlook an insight, you fail. But if you seize the insight, you thrive. And so one of the things that I always think about when I think about community is how long does it take before user-generated content actually basically outcompetes the originator or the ambassador of that actual channel. And so what I mean by that is that someone that starts a community, they get the ball rolling. But where I really start to see community thrive is when the administrator basically steps back and lets the community keep the engine going. And I've seen this in a number of different ways. The nerdiest example I have is I'm a classic movies guy, and I'm a part of a Jaws, literally the movie from the 70s, Jaws community on Facebook that has almost
A Jaws community?
80,000 members. And it has probably about 50 posts a day about anything and everything about that movie. I personally believe it's the greatest movie ever made. That's just one man's opinion.
Wow.
But what happens is that I don't even know who started the community, but he got the ball rolling. And I'm telling you, every single picture turns into an ocean, no pun intended, of comments.
Yeah.
And that's where you see it thriving. And so when I'm reading your book, I'm thinking of that. I'm thinking about other things like I'm a huge fan of English League Soccer. And about 2 Sundays a month, I go into the city and I try to watch Arsenal. I'm an Arsenal fan from London, and this whole bar is just Arsenal fans. I mean, we're not based in London, obviously, but we all get together as a community. And I swear in these community groups, if anybody needs anything, if I see that you're part of the Arsenal group, I'm going to direct message you right away. And it's just that connecting tissue that I love, and I think that that's the insight. But how do you measure that?
Well, I mean, that's one of the things that I think is actually relatively easy to measure. So let me give you an example. The first part of your question, I think I was hearing you were asking like if there's any sort of pattern or best practice to that. And I don't know. I think it's an excellent question. But what I'm seeing in my community is I have a community. It's on Discord. By the way, it's open, it's free, anybody's welcome. Just send me an email through my website and you can get in. We're dedicated to learning about the future of marketing. So we're experimenting with the metaverse and NFTs and Web3 and AI. And so when I started the community, I thought, okay, this is going to be, I'm the leader of this community. And what are people going to want to talk about? Well, they're going to talk about the things I want to talk about, which would be writing and personal branding and public speaking. And my friends, those are the emptiest rooms in my group. Because as soon as people got in there, they started taking me into the metaverse and AI. And it is glorious because this has become my university. And everything I write about and everything I speak about started with a conversation that someone's teaching me about something in this community. Now, we talk about this transmission. This is really where I think the interesting brand idea takes place. When you have something in your community that's so cool and so unmissable, people take it outside the community. All right? Now, about a month ago, we have these parties in the metaverse. I actually bought a metaverse, I guess it's a condo. I bought a condo on the metaverse. And I still have not explained this charge on my credit card to my wife. But that's a story for another day. But I have a condo, and it's got a big meeting room. I got a bar. I got a patio overlooking the ocean. I got a dance floor, and I got a swimming pool. And so we all meet in the metaverse, and we're having a good time. And because we were meeting in the winter, we jumped into another metaverse condo, and it was on a ski slope, and this condo had a hot tub. So people in my community jumped into the hot tub. We learned that you could do that. So we're always learning. We also learned how to clap in the metaverse. This was a big breakthrough. So there we are, sitting in the hot tub clapping and learning that we could do this. And I'm sitting there with people from all over the world. And the picture is, here we are sitting in this hot tub with the sun setting over these glorious snow-capped mountains. And everybody took pictures of this, and it was all over the internet. And then people said, how do I join? I feel like I'm missing out. How do I become part of this? So that's really the marketing mindset, right? When you create something in your community that's so cool and creates so much value that it's user-generated content, right? It's taking it outside the community.
Yeah, and every one of those ideas is vetted. It's been kind of battle tested by this group. There was crickets, or it caught fire.
Yeah.
I recently read a first edition of a book about productivity. It was James Clear's Atomic Habits.
Oh yeah.
And in the book, he's talking about feedback that he got from his readers. Clearly, that was on a blog. Clearly, there's comments. Clearly, there's feedback. Clearly, there's a conversation happening. And I just assumed as soon as I read that, I realized, this is a better book because it came from, it was sort of market tested, or it came from a group, or there was a collaborative spirit somewhere in the idea generation. There's things in there where he really credits his, which one was it? It was before you go to bed at night, reset the room. It's a productivity book. Reset the room, right? Clean it up, get it ready for tomorrow. When you come downstairs, it's going to be a clean slate. And I think he cited a member of his community as providing that idea. It's one of the ideas that really stuck with me, made it a better book.
Yeah.
So yeah, it seems like but that only works if you don't try to control it too much. Is that what I'm hearing? Let it flow.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's part of the courage that it takes to be successful. And it takes really one of the most profound and interesting quotes in the book, I think, comes from a guy had a traditional B2B marketing agency outside of London, and he just wasn't going anywhere. And he created this community. He had this small group of friends that used to get together for lunch, and it kept growing. And he said, let's grow this into something. And now they have events, and they have conferences, and they have all kinds of, and the community has become so big and so important. The community is now bigger than his business. It is his business. It's not just community-based marketing. It's his business. And so he said, leading a community is different than anything I learned in college. I have to reinvent the way I lead, and I'm still learning. And it's very unsettling. And I find the same thing is that you've got to let people take you where they want to go. I've got people in my community from all over the world, and they're seeing things and experiencing things that I never could, not in real time all around the world, and just provides this richness and this holistic view of things going on in marketing that's wonderful and something I could never recreate in any way. So I agree, and there is kind of a vetting process that goes on. You're right, Andy, because people debate it inside. Well, is this real or is it not real? And so it's been a great learning experience for me too, and also very, very humbling.
Yeah. Let me ask you something from your book as well that I thought related to this is the direction I thought you were going. Is that you have a really cool story about what Lego does in how they help product development and how they use community. Basically have the origin or the genesis of new products and new ideas and things like that. Can you elaborate on that? Because I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, Lego, IKEA does something similar. Starbucks was one of the first to do that. If you remember, Starbucks had a community that redesigned their packaging, that introduced many new products that Starbucks, it could be they have like music CDs at some of their stores even. So it's a very powerful technique. We also see this happening a lot with like Nike, Adidas. It's this idea of co-creation. Specifically with Lego, this is a community. It's almost a professional community. You have to earn certain status to even get into this community. And once you get into the community, then you sell you kind of sell your products, and it's reviewed by the community and voted on by the community. And if it gets to a certain level, then it's considered for a product launch for Lego. One of the famous examples that's just coming out on the market now is it's a series of Lego projects that's meant to compete with jigsaw puzzles. So over the holidays, we have a family tradition. We'll do a jigsaw puzzle, and everybody kind of walks by a little bit and they'll do a little bit. But you'd never think of doing Legos because that's kind of a kid thing. Well, they've created this whole new series that came out of this community, and it's like a bowl of succulents. It's adult topics. And so this is meant for a family activity at a holiday to compete with jigsaw puzzles. And that's a whole new marketing idea that came out directly from that community. And the people who had that idea are going to share in the intellectual property and share in the profits.
Wow, I didn't realize they get to share in the profits. I mean, there's a lot of communities. Actually, I'm thinking of others. Ever heard of Threadless, the t-shirt company?
Oh, yeah.
Anyone can submit a design, off-the-wall creative ideas. And then the community votes on the shirts and the designs. And whoever gets the highest votes they go into production with that shirt. And then the same community that voted, it's brilliant. It is one of the most elegantly monetized communities. And what that does, I mean, to what extent is this part of the outcome, or is it a goal or the strategy? It makes everything else irrelevant. Who cares about other t-shirt companies? I'm in this community. This is where I go. I hang out here. There's other, it's sort of, it reminds me of the old days and some of the things we learned from you years ago of Content Shock. Like, does this help make other brands irrelevant? How does it affect competition?
Oh, yeah. And I think you were sort of touching on an important point here that I wanted to build on when you said, hey, why would I go anywhere else? Because these are my peeps, right?
Right.
So one of the most profound and interesting things I learned when I was writing this book, and I did some insanely deep dives going down these academic rabbit holes of psychology and sociology. And I mean, it's just like when you realize the power of communities, like, why have we been ignoring this? But one of the most interesting things is that the friendships and relationships that occur in a community, that goodwill spills over to brand love. And it almost suggests that the leadership mindset in community should be encouraging the relationships in the community even more than the relationship to the brand, because it creates an emotional switching cost.
Oh,
these are my peeps. If I leave this brand, it's just like you said with Threadless. If I leave all this, oh my gosh, look at this thing that Chris submitted. Oh, wow, he's my favorite. I can't wait to meet him in real life. That it creates emotional switching. That if I leave this brand, I leave my friends. And that's never going to happen. So to answer your question, does this create something profound in terms of loyalty and sustainability? Absolutely, yes. One other quick example. I interviewed a wonderful entrepreneur in the book, Alice Ferris. She creates community for non-profit companies. And she threw out this comment that her favorite community for support in professional business issues is MM Lafleur. I never heard of them. MM Lafleur is a retail brand. They sell sort of like professional clothing for a business setting for women. She said, I know this sounds crazy, but when I have like a question or I want to test an idea, I go into this community.
Yeah.
These are my friends that I trust. I know it's a clothing brand, but this is where I go. Now, I actually went into the community, maybe the only man in this community, but I wanted to see what was happening there. And sure, they talk about clothes and maybe they have pictures of their closets or something like that, but they also talk about life. And they talk about challenges they're facing in business. And you could just see the love, the friendship, the commitment in this community because the purpose of the brand intersects with the purpose of the community. That's when the magic happens. It's not meeting a quarterly sales goal. It's when when this purpose intersects that you can be greater as a brand if your customers are there to go along with you and drive the thing. That's where the magic really happens in community.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Lego community as having some threshold required to get in. We know you from your personality and your behaviors online. You're an incredibly inclusive person. To what extent is exclusivity hopeful at community building? Does that create greater interest? Is there some level of deliberate friction that can help communities either attract the right person or grow faster? And what benefit have you gotten by putting yourself out there? You're famous for doing these like days of calls where anyone from your community we will get on a call with, and you'll spend. You're an extreme example of generosity with your time. But target audience, exclusivity, an engagement in a community. How do these relate?
That is something. First of all, it's important. It's something I'm still learning about and exploring myself. One of the things I kept hearing over and over again, Andy, is the importance of culture and like a language in a community, traditions in a community. And it's not necessarily exclusivity, but it makes you proud that you're there and you're part of it. It distinguishes you from people in the community versus those who aren't in the community. And I'll give you an example of where I first sort of like picked up on this, where I'm trying to be intentional with a community tradition and language. I mentioned these experiments, these parties we have in the metaverse. I think it was our second one. We were learning how to move our bodies in the metaverse.
I love this. It's so funny to me. That's an important thing to know.
Yeah,
in the real world.
And it's not easy. It's not intuitive necessarily. And we started dancing. We were dancing, and there was no music. And we decided we were going to get in a line, and we were going to dance. And sometimes someone's hand would go through somebody else's head, and we would laugh, and it was funny and clunky. And so now, I don't organize these things. Other people in my community are organizing these things. But one of my roles in the community is to be the shepherd of the culture. And so it's got to be kind, nurturing, validating, no toxicity, zero tolerance for toxicity. And I said to the people organizing this, I said, let's do that dance. Let's start every party with a dance. Let's make that part of our tradition. So the last one, we actually had a Spotify playlist. It's getting more and more utilitarian, let's say. And so I'm trying to watch for phrases and words. I did something in this book. This is my 10th book. I did something in this book I've never done before. I devoted an entire chapter to one person. That's chapter 4. And actually, I met that person because of you, Andy.
Wait, I know her. I know who you're talking about. But I don't know that I certainly
It
didn't
was
introduce
at,
you to her.
it was at the breakfast you hosted in San Diego.
I do
I think
remember
it
this
was
now.
maybe 2018.
That's when
And
I met her too, though.
I
Okay.
met her. I met her for the first time and started hearing what she was doing. And I said, I am looking into the eyes of the future of marketing.
Hmm.
Dan is absolutely visionary, and she leads this community called Boss Mom. 70,000 members. She's close to $1 million in revenue. She's doubled her business every year. No sales department, no marketing department, no marketing budget. It's marketing without marketing. This is, the future. And when I interviewed her, and I learned so much from her. Truly, she's a visionary. She said, pay attention to the culture and the language. And she gave an example. In her community, when someone does something good, they have this little saying, I heart your face. I heart your face. It's a way of saying, I love you, congratulations, right? And so I've been watching and listening for the culture to develop. And it's not necessarily exclusivity, but when you start to adopt a culture, it creates this barrier that it's us, it's we, and we're special because we're here, and that's out there. But we're safe and we belong here, and that's the culture you need to enable.
Yeah, it sounds like there's still an insider outsider dynamic, but without being exclusive. It's like your whole point. It's belonging.
Yeah.
That there's I think that's just fundamental to human nature, the insider outsider difference. But you're not. You said shepherd. You're not really a gatekeeper that's disallowing certain individuals from joining. I think there's some communities that actually want to grow through exclusivity or to create a stronger value proposition by making people feel special.
I think that's valid, and it might be where I get to eventually, because my community is growing organically. So far, so good. But and I love it kind of the way it is. I'm a little afraid if it gets too big. Dana would tell you, she's had to do a lot of delegation in a community of 70,000 people. She said, there's just no way I can know everybody the way I would like to. I don't think I want a community like that. So, how will it change? How will it grow? I'm exploring and I'm learning, I'm learning too. I don't have all the answers. But as long as it's creating value for everybody. But my goal right now is everybody's welcome. It's inclusive and it's free. We're getting, a few new members every week and welcoming them and trying to get them involved. And that's the biggest problem I'm facing right now, is that there is this certain language and culture emerging that new people, I think, feel intimidated. It's just like, wow, woo, there's all this stuff going on here. And so I actually just created a welcoming committee. I said, here's the problem. We need to reach out to new people and just say, look, don't be overwhelmed. I'm going to take your hand and let's just start here, because I don't want people to feel isolated. I want to get them on board and, let them feel, part of it as soon as they can.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
I was thinking about how, like, tactics of community, it's almost like the whole 2 pizza rule. Like, my company's big enough where when I ask a question and everyone's at the conference room, I'll ask a question that everyone would know or want to answer, but they don't because they've got 25 other people there. But if I ask the same question in a room of 4 or 5, all 5 of them would speak. And so one of the things I wonder, and this is something I don't know, is that once you get the community, that the strength of the community is that they will actually break up into their own small groups, and they will, as a sub-community of the community, open that door so that everyone's afraid. In a digital landscape, I think asking a question there is a whole lot safer than in a physical environment. I just do wonder, we're talking about insights and things like that. That's one of the things that I wonder is that the sign of a healthy community is that people in the community will feel the need or the desire to not wait for the boss of the group to tell them to go and foster relationship.
Yeah. and it's like, it's super weird. I want to, this is going to sound, this is going to sound weird, but you guys will understand that in my, like a lot of people in my community, they really look up to me. It's like,
Sure.
like, look what you've done, and you've done all these things that we want to do, and I want to be you someday. So I got to be really careful about how I show up, and I'm not really free necessarily to debate because that shuts everything down.
Yeah.
I get that.
It's
It
just
makes
like,
perfect sense.
yeah, it's like I'm not an equal community member. I have, and look, I've made mistakes. I really have, because I think, oh, I'm just going to get in there. I want to be part of this fight, Not really a fight, but a discussion or whatever. And so I've got to, I have to always be aware of that dynamic. And it's something that maybe some communities have that dynamic, others don't, and it's something, it's ongoing. I don't have all the answers. I'm learning every day.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have 6 years ago, I started a monthly happy hour, and it just keeps growing, and more people show up, and now we take over like the third of this bar. It's like it's word of mouth,
Nice.
And occasionally there'll be like a little debate, and so I'm one of the sort of de facto organizers, or people come because they know that I'll be there and I get to see people. I send people there knowing that people who want to get together, it's an easy channel for me. Just meet me at the bar. I'll be there. It's last Wednesday of the month. But I'm also sensitive to coming out with too strong of an opinion on a topic. I think there's a balancing where, you can make it, where the topics are sort of too safe and general, and then it all just sort of tastes like water. Boring. Or, I come out, or there's a very strong opinion presented that makes it sound like this community has an agenda, or we're planting a flag here, or we're against something or for something, which isn't really what we want to do either. Yeah. So I think that I think that's the balancing act that probably community managers know, moderators know, facilitators know, and that it's a special role for someone, for the brand, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
To walk that line.
I think walking the line and also being aware of chemistry. For example, there are certain people I would really like to be part of my group. I'd like both of you, by the way, to be in my group. And any of your listeners who want to join, just send me an email and you can get in. But you're open-minded, forward-thinking leaders. That's where I thrive. I took that, the Gallup Strength Finders test, right? One of the things I learned about myself, I knew about myself, but this validated, is that I thrive with big thinkers, right? And so that's why, I get along with you guys so much. And so that's what I love. That's where I thrive in my community. And sometimes I get frustrated if my community is moving down into minutia. I want to be thinking about what's next. I want to be, and so I want people to be. So that's one of my sort of measures of success. The people who I admire and I want to learn from, are they active in my community? Are they participating in my community? If I can keep them interested and stimulated in my community, that would be a good sign of success. So, yeah, that's another kind of dynamic that I'm working on.
And that's one of those ones where, Andy, when you were saying some intentional friction, I was kind of thinking of the Mark Twain quote of like, I don't want to join a club that would actually have me as a member. And so you start to think about this.
That was Groucho Marx.
Groucho Marx.
Yeah. Mark Twain. Wow, my fault. Jeez. I'm going to have to edit that in post-production.
We both jumped on you for that one.
I couldn't help myself.
I'm
See,
a
there
Marx
I am,
person.
shutting down a conversation. There I am. See, Andy?
Too much detail.
Right.
Damn it.
We're looking for big picture thinking.
Yeah. Well, I think my point was still in the fact that I want to form a community, but I also want the subject level of that community to have a high bar. And the more, it's like this push and pull of, if I keep it too open, I might not get the level of community that I'm hoping for. But if I keep it too closed, I might be shutting out or alienating people that could have brought a tremendous amount of value. And so this dance that you're talking about with community, I love the concept, I love the idea, but I do think the value of the book is that you have so many tenets that you should probably go chapter by chapter on, because just saying the word community, I mean, what community means for a church is very different than what it means to a marketing group and a happy hour group. And, you know, I do think that.
But those foundational principles are the same, 100%. And here's what I'm finding, and this is very rewarding. There is a whole ecosystem out there of community managers. They have their own conference, they have their own, community. And I mean, this is an intense group of people. And I was really intimidated because, like, here I am writing this, having the audacity, the pomposity to write a book about community when these people have been doing this stuff for, 20 years in some cases. And here's what I'm finding. They love it. They love this book because, first of all, it validates their work. And second of all, sometimes they're so far down in the weeds, they're not considering these universal principles of success. And they're having trouble in a community and they're going, oh yeah, I read your book. Now it makes so much sense. Because they hadn't really thought about the building blocks, the pieces you need to have in place for success. And I want to emphasize, I mean, this is not a how-to book. It's not, I don't tell you how to hire a community manager. I don't talk about the legal issues of community. Look, there's other great books about that. This is, here are the foundational principles of building this for brand value. And there's never been a book like this before. I think that's the distinctive value, the important value of why we need to be looking at this in this age.
Yeah, I think community managers know these things intuitively, but when you put it down on paper, the alignment with psychology, the place in history and society, this moment, the relevance to brands and competition and platforms. And speaking of platforms and formats, I keep coming back. Several times during this conversation, I thought of Marketing Profs. Marketing Profs has an event. I'm a member of that community, and I love the event. You and I have met at events. You and I met at an event where Rick Springfield was playing, organized by Brett. Remember that? It wasn't it was Content Marketing World.
Marketing World.
And they were investing heavily in cultural sort of inclusion kind of experience by booking actual, musicians.
Yeah.
So to what extent is a live event component important? And tell me about your experience in that format.
Well, I studied many communities to create this book. And what I found is that there is a pattern almost always, even if it's primarily an online community, there is a live component.
Okay.
A great example of this is Twitch. Twitch is arguably the biggest community in the world. And yet they have a conference so people can come together and meet their friends and meet their heroes. And that accelerates this bond. My community, we are going to be getting together live for the first time in June. They're coming to my house.
That's inclusion.
I don't know how it's going to work.
That is inclusion.
We needed a place to meet. And I said, I live kind of in a central location. I live on the lake. Come to my house. And, bring your significant others, bring your kids. I don't care. We'll see how it goes. So hopefully it won't be too big.
That's special, though. That really is. It's precious. Those memories, those selfies.
No, it'll change everything.
It will change everything.
It'll change everything. It really will. And so we need to do that. And we're creating a co-created book in our community. Wow. It's called The Most Amazing Marketing Book Ever, because everybody in the community, they have like this deep knowledge of podcasting or advertising or whatever. So, we're writing a book and they're giving their top 10 tips for these different things. And so our live event is going to coincide with the book launch. Say, all right, come on, we'll celebrate this thing and come to my house and we'll have some barbecue and some adult beverages and hopefully the weather will be nice.
Okay, listeners, we promised value. You all were just invited to Mark Schaefer's home for barbecue.
Yes, you are.
Not, I think, but in all seriousness, that is, it's a powerful differentiator. It's a wonderful thing to do. There's just no replacing face-to-face interaction. You started by talking about the pandemic, so I'm glad that we touched on that. We've just a minute left. Size, big, small, doesn't matter. I talked about a happy hour. Dana's got 70,000 people. Twitch is a massive conference. Big or small, how does it fit?
I think it gets down to your goals. One of the companies I profile in the book is Sephora. Sephora is a brick and mortar company, but 80% of their revenue comes through their community. So obviously, the bigger the community, the better. Dana has a different business model completely. I think she's struggling with size. She admitted in that's recounted in the book that she's struggling with what do you do with 70,000 people and how does she go forward. Me, I like my community to be a manageable size where there's an emotional connection and we're becoming friends. It's growing, and what does that mean, and what does that mean for the future? I don't know. So it really gets down to your goals. I mean, my goal is to learn and to learn and to teach and to collaborate. That lends itself to a smaller community. So we might have to break up into different communities eventually. But it really gets down to your goal, I think.
Yeah. Mark, I am going to be the bad guy here. An hour flew by just like that. And so
thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm completely honored. I love and admire both of you. I'm so honored to be on your first program. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is great.
Belonging to the brand, get it where books are sold. You just spent an hour with Mark Schaefer himself. This man's brain is a gift to the marketing community, the marketing industry at large. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, both of you.
And to our listeners, do all the standard stuff. Please know that we're going to try to build this year's show that we're going to probably put out one show a month. Please click on the notification bell and subscribe. And we just love to be able to get content like this to you as often as possible. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.